This episode of the Miami Tech Pod is sponsored by Ramrack Recruiting. Ramrack specializes in working with startups and small, fast-growing companies. A genuine people-oriented approach, honesty and trust, and they operate with a real, friendly, approachable culture. They already have, great impact for their clients and candidates as they partnered with recruiting for executive, tech, product, HR, sales, and marketing positions. Reach out at ramrack.com, spelled RAMRAK.com. They're keen to hear from you and see what value they can provide to your startup here in Miami. Hey everyone, welcome to episode 11 of the Miami Tech Pod. I'm Cesar Fernandez, and as always, I'm joined by Brian Breslin, Maria Durkee, and Will Weinrob. And, right off the bat, we have some exciting news. The Miami Tech Pod Squad has gotten a little bigger. Will Weinrob, do you want to share some exciting news in your life, in your family?
Oh, yeah. Thank you for that, Cesar. Appreciate it. Yeah. On Tuesday, my wife and I welcomed our third child to the world. So the Miami Tech community has a new member. And I'm sure hopefully he'll be contributing very, very soon, probably with Legos and Duplos to start, but then eventually we'll get him into, some programming and things like that. But no, we're blessed. We're super thrilled. His name's Tyler, and he's all but 3 days old at the moment. So we're not sleeping very much, but we're very, very excited and feeling very blessed. So thank you for that, Cesar.
Congrats, Will. I'm sure he'll be raising money at a 20 million pre-seed valuation in no time.
Minimum.
Awesome. So we have a lot to talk about this week. Let's jump right in. Will, what do you have for us?
Yeah, so TechCrunch hosted their first Miami pitch competition, which is really cool, all virtual, done via Hopin. By the way, Hopin, really great platform for virtual events. By the way, we're not sponsored by Hopin. I just happened to be checking out the event, and I thought it was really well done.
We could be.
Yeah, we could be. That's true. Hopin, freshly funded. Holler at us.
If you're listening.
So they had a pitch competition. There were 5 companies that pitched. We have Kitty Credit, Casting Depot, Sabia, Redact, and Myra, all pitching their startups. It was a great event, and Evan from Kitty Credit took home the trophy. We all know Evan, amazing entrepreneur, and Dan Saltman from Redact was runner-up, also a great entrepreneur. For those that don't know Dan, he's actually a little bit under the radar here. He had a previous company called Tiny Chat, which was a big video chat platform, about, I would say, maybe like 8-10 years ago. Had a successful exit and now here building Redact. So really cool event. Guys, did you have a chance to check this out or see some of the clips from it?
I did not, but I have heard of Kitty Credit, which is pretty cool. I mean, I first of all, I think like as a society, we have like this glaring lack of financial education in general, right? This glaring lack of like, financial education kind of in the curriculum in our public schools, across the board. And it sounds like they're not just, building that muscle for kids, but they're, kind of filling a gap that we have in the world, right? I mean, I think this is going to be a really neat thing for kids to learn simple things like budgeting and crediting and the value of saving at a young age. So because we can't just rely on the school system to be able to teach them that. So I'm just bullish on, I have no ties to the company or anything like that. I never met anyone that works there. I'm bullish on the mission, and it's cool to see a Miami company kind of tackling it.
Yeah, Evan from Kitty Credit, as we're pulling it up right now. It's a mobile app designed to educate children on the credit system by completing chores. So every time they complete a chore, they get a bump to their Kitty Credit score. So, right on, Cesar, with what you said about, teaching these kids at a young age. Again, as a father of 3, my 2 older kids actually use Kitty Credit. They're already active users of the platform. So really big fan of what Evan's doing. And then Redact is a new startup, as I mentioned, Dan Saltman's new company. So Redact is a way for you to basically cleanse your data in one centralized location. Like if you have, your Twitter, your Discord, your Skype, your Facebook, your Instagram, all these things that you might not want the data that you had on there from 10 years ago to still be on there. You want to cleanse your data after a few months of posting it, cleaning things up and things like that. Think of it like, just a way to spruce up your profiles, like your Skype messages, for example. Your Skype messages, we all used Skype about 10 years ago. It was like one of the most popular video chat and messaging platforms. Your messages are still there. If you log into your Skype, all those old conversations from 10 years ago are still there. Do you want them there? So Redact is a way for you to kind of just have an automated way to cleanse all your digital footprints, basically.
And Redact sounds interesting. It could totally be like a must-have for every would-be or future politician.
Yes.
Or celebrity who has had some faux pas either in the past or very recently.
Correct. Correct. I think that's the audience they're going for. As far it goes for everybody, but for example, if you wanted to delete anything you said that was political over the past year, Redact could help you do that. If you wanted to delete any social media posts that are posted beyond 8 years ago, you could put on these little automation scripts to do stuff like that.
I feel like this is going directly to like college kids before they apply for jobs post-college. Just like delete 100%. All the
absolutely
unfavorable things.
This is the clear your browser history button for the entire internet.
I love that. That's a great angle for sure. So we'll have Dan on the show, up one of these coming weeks. But really cool 2 companies that are doing big things. Kitty Credit and Redact. Check them out. We'll drop their links in the description. And yeah, excited to see them get more press. And that begs the question: should we be doing more of these type of events? These either virtual or now, as we get vaccinated, more in-person events, more pitch competitions, more shining the spotlights on great companies here in Miami.
I mean, I think Maria and I can both speak to this, that like we miss the old in-person pitch events of yesteryear, right? I mean, it was only 4 or 5 years ago, or 3 or 4 years ago, that we were getting 500 people to show up to see a handful of startups pitch and show off what they're working on. A demo day is sort of like a rite of passage, I think, in most tech communities. It's sort of where you've been in stealth for so long, and now this is your first public exposure on a limited scale, and I think I don't think we've done, Maria can speak to this. I don't think we've done any virtual ones, right?
No, we haven't. Maybe we should plan one for later in the year once we hope things will be a bit back to normal.
Or in like a few months. I don't know if you all are tracking the vaccine stuff, but we're putting shots in arms. I'm proud of the country. I mean, I feel like, I saw 96 million vaccine doses have been administered. I mean, that's an incredible number. It's growing very quickly, and I don't know what you all, the sense that you get, but it really does feel like we're just turning the corner and we're about to be back to normal with some like live events. There may be some mass mandates at these things. Who knows? But I'm super optimistic that it's going to be here, probably in June.
Yeah. Weren't you the one who said like 4th of July is going to be crazy?
It's going to be lit. That's what I said.
I want to refresh Miami 4th of July party that basically reopens everything. It's like, that's the moment. 4th of July, brought to you by Refresh Miami, pitch competition, fireworks, barbecue, America, absolutely.
Live pod at the barbecue.
Oh, I like this idea.
And it's our 15th year this year, so I feel like we need a big blowout.
Let's celebrate our freedom by being free.
You guys know, like, Brian said this would happen in the first episode of the Miami Tech Pod. He's like, when we're going to throw a big party, Miami style.
This is true.
Yep. We're going to have Pitbull impersonators and Gloria Stefan impersonators, because we can't afford the real ones because we need more sponsors. Thank you to our current sponsor.
Ramrack, we love you. First sponsor. Well, another piece of big news for the pod team is Cesar was appointed this week by the City Commission to the Miami Technology Council. Cesar, can you tell us what that means?
Yeah, thanks. It was a really big honor to be appointed yesterday. We're recording on a Friday. It was I was appointed on Thursday, the 11th. But the mayor put forward an item a few weeks ago, establishing a new city board that advises the city commission and advises the mayor on policy. And there's a bunch of different boards at the city. Some relate to sustainability, some relate to how the city spends its money on bonds. Some relate to policing and housing, but he established one specifically for technology. And I was nominated by Commissioner Diaz de la Portilla to be on it and approved by the city commission. So it's going to be fun. I'm personally really excited about it. I think that one of the awesome opportunities is to look up and down kind of the list of government services and really try to come up with policy recommendations with the lens of like how this impacts the tech community, right? So, one of the things that I have personally been kind of exposed to as a pain point here is like the permitting process, right? Like it is really, really difficult sometimes to get permits, and there's kind of a backlog sometimes, and some of this is not necessarily like a fault of government, right? There's a lot of activity, there's a lot of applications. It's a hard job to do, and I'm empathetic to it. But one of the things that I notice is that there is not a really good way of getting a company that's based in a co-working space permitted, right? And with a bunch of startups trying to contain costs in the early stages, we've seen an explosion of co-working. We've seen a bunch of co-working spaces, like Burrow and WeWork and Sandhouse and others. The Lab, really housing a lot of our tech talent. If you go in and try to get your business tax receipts and permits for these, the applications don't necessarily lend to a co-working environment, because they ask questions like, how big is your office? How much square footage is it? And, if you're sitting on an actual hot desk at a WeWork, it's like, how do I answer this question? And that kind of delays sometimes the entire application process. So those are the things that at least I will be, trying to bring forward in terms of, what the community can do. I'm also super bullish on seeing where, the mayor's initiative around making this the most crypto friendly city in America goes, and how we can build on that. So it's going to be cool. I'm looking forward to putting my public service hat back on. It's been 10 years since I worked for government, so now I get to volunteer my time for government.
Just to clarify, Cesar, this is separate from the Venture Miami team, right?
Yeah, it's unclear how they're going to interact, but yes, this is a established city board. There's a whole procedure. There's a bunch of the mayor gets some appointments. Each commissioner gets appointments. There's people with specific expertise that can sit on it. So I think it's going to be about a dozen people that will be advising the city on policy here.
I mean, I think that's exciting. It's exciting to see there being people with technical know-how and understanding how technology works inside the government, to pair with the folks who've been sort of on their own independently of government, like Code for South and all the stuff that Mike Sarasti and folks have been supporting, that we're sort of trying to patchwork together a lot of solutions. But now the fact that you can have internal and external dialogue coming together, I think is going to be pretty cool as far as building our city as if it were an API. That's my nerdiest comment of the day.
Yeah, 100%. And I'm particularly going to have kind of an eye for that, which is like, what is being duplicated right now? What are all of the external resources? How can we bring these folks to the table so that, we're not trying to reinvent the wheel of thought and activity that drives these policy outcomes. So yeah, I'm with you.
Yeah, I think it's going to be key too to coordinate between what you guys are doing, and also the rest of the county, just because we have so many municipalities in Dade County, plus the county itself, and a lot of them are vastly under-resourced and won't be able to take on these types of initiatives. So I can imagine the village of Pinecrest not being able to, not even knowing that this is something they should be implementing or thinking about. So. But I'm excited.
Thanks. Cool. Let's move on. Enough about me here. We have a lot of fundraising news this week in companies that are doing some cool things. Brian, what what's going on in the world of dollars and cents for these startups in Miami?
So I think the biggest round or biggest news this week was our new to Miami startup Pipe.com. Harry Hurst and his team moved here during COVID sometime last year, I think, and they just raised $50 million from a mixture of local investors and then big time West Coast investors. Like I think Chamath was one of the investors, and Andreessen Horowitz and a handful of others were on that cap table. And Pipe is super fascinating to me because it's effectively a new way of helping SaaS startups and companies with recurring revenue finance their operations, and solve for cash flow crunches and stuff like that, all in a dynamic sort of instant way. So this could be a $100 billion company at some point, based on current valuations.
Yeah, I have some. First of all, I think it's a really cool model, right? I think that from just like financing of startups, because right now, like the fundraising world is really hot, and but we've also seen that go in cycles, right? Like we've seen some years where there's fewer LPs pumping money into funds, and that trickles down to the system. So having the ability to tap into your future recurring revenue and kind of like essentially collateralizing that and selling that into to investors. I don't know if collateral is the right word. No, securitizing that. That's what I meant to say. And selling that to investors so that you can get revenue up front. I mean, maybe life or death for these companies. Will, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I think that part of what you mentioned regarding all these different types of sources for capital, like Pipe is a new type of fundraising source. Basically, you could sell your future revenue for current revenue, is the reason why you're seeing an influx in competition on the VC side for deals. Because VCs, before there was really only kind of a few ways you could raise money. Now there are multiple ways you could raise money. Pipe's one of them. Crowdfunding is another one. So you're seeing all these interesting methods of bringing capital into companies, and VCs are going to have to figure out other ways to provide value. And you see now VCs, sloshing the market with higher valuations. There's competition for deals. So this really levels out the playing field. I really like Pipe. I think that the team is obviously amazing. It's great to have them here in Miami. And I just love the vision that they have for this company. So I'm with you guys. And Brian, I think you're right. This definitely has the potential to be a huge company. $100 billion seems possible with this type of model.
So the question is, how do we buy shares on the secondary, since none of us have access to the Chamath style dollars or deal flow?
Well, it brings a kind of existential question: is will there be kind of another fundraising round, right? Will this be like will Pipe shares be liquid because Pipe can use Pipe for its future revenue?
Interesting.
So yeah, that's my question. Like, is there going to be an actual, is this going to be disruptive in a positive way to kind of start up fundraising, right? Because I know I've seen, the founding team, I know Harry, like on Twitter, has kind of alluded to this, or some people commenting on, Pipe's growth and trajectory have alluded to this, that this is kind of a way to solve against like this mass dilution of founders, right? If they're raising less capital because they're tapping into essentially these debt markets for to access their future revenue, will you see companies kind of emerge out of this with founders having a much larger percentage of the cap table rather than diluting down to like single digits sometimes, which I gotta imagine is sometimes demoralizing, sometimes motivating if the company is large enough, but no founder wants to like start this thing, pour their entire life into working at a company and then own like 6% of it, right? So I don't know. I think this is a pretty interesting angle here.
I think we'll end up seeing some sort of hybrid where in the past, people went predominantly one route or the other, whether it was debt or equity financing. And I think this will open up a third rail for this. so they can do a mixture of all these things. But I think it's exciting. I think we'll see some interesting things. I'd love to see this team grow immensely here in South Florida, and I know that they're mostly remote, the company, but it'd be cool to see at least Miami become one of their hubs. But the other shifting topics, the other interesting story this week from a financing, or one of the other interesting stories from a financing perspective was Lumu raising $7.5 million, led by SoftBank. And Lumu is interesting because it was the founder, Ricardo, was a former Sixtera employee, the cybersecurity company over there, which just went through their SPAC merger to go at over $1 billion. No, Sixtera was like $4 billion their raise a few weeks ago. But anyway, so I think it's interesting to see that there's so many cybersecurity companies popping up in South Florida. We've got them with Securus, Appgate, and a bunch of other players in that space.
And I got to say, this is one that, our friend of the Miami Tech Pod, Lucy Lopez, will be proud of, because they're based in Doral. This is no, $1 million square footage Brickell HQ here. We're in the burbs here. So shout out to Lumu building a company in the suburbs in the city of Doral.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, look, your burn rate is super extended when you're only paying Doral rent versus Brickell Class A office space, right? So, and I think it also gives them access to a whole sort of block of talent that they wouldn't be getting. They wouldn't have to compete with if they were in Brickell and stuff like that. I think this is a company to watch. I don't necessarily understand everything that the product does, since I'm not a cybersecurity expert. But maybe at some point we have someone who's into cybersecurity on the pod, and they can explain to us all these things that we don't understand, or why everything we've done online is at risk, and we're all screwed.
This is why they're a big company, because no one's a cybersecurity expert.
Yeah. And then there was one more piece of interesting fundraising news, which was part-time or Miami resident Alexandra Wilkes Wilson, co-founder of Guilt and Glam Squad, just raised a huge fund. Maria, do you have any details on that?
Yeah. So her and Lisa Mayers, I hope I'm pronouncing her last name correctly. They raised a $100 million growth equity fund for $70 million has closed. They're still closing the final $30 million, and it will focus on tech and consumer focused companies. And so part of the agreement is they will lead rounds, and they'll always take one board seat and one observer seat. And the point of that is so that both partners will participate in the investments. And they made their inaugural investment in a company called Dormify, which is a dorm room e-commerce platform founded by Amanda Zuckerman. And those are the details I have.
That's pretty great, man. There's so much activity happening right now. I feel like every single week we have either a new fund or a new company raising or some of this. It's neat to see. I feel like, what have you guys totaled? I know that Refresh has kind of pushed out a lot of like the total amount of venture money being pumped in by quarter. Have you guys totaled the last quarter? Not to put you on the spot here, but I'd love to get a sense of what that number is.
I haven't seen a total yet. And it's also sort of murky if you start mixing in all the SPACs and the companies going public and all that stuff, which is unusual for Miami or the world, right? And so I think, but it would be interesting. Maybe we should announce it here that we're going to start the $1 trillion tracker or something like that, or the road to $1 trillion, because I'm pretty sure we'll get past $1 billion pretty quickly this year compared to previous years.
You heard it here first. The road to $1 trillion of venture funding being pumped into Miami startups.
It may take a decade. Maybe we add in valuations of all these companies too, so that we get closer to $1 trillion.
Brian just realized how big $1 trillion is.
Listen, my calculator that I had in high school does not go that far. So my TI-83.
TI, there we go. I was trying to figure out. What was the Texas Instruments? That was the company that
they're still around. and they make something like $100 million a year off those calculators still.
No way.
It's because of all those teachers requiring you to get them.
Right. Is it an actual like licensing deal, or is it, do they manufacture calculators though?
I think they have basically kept making the same product for the last 40 years and are like at 99% margins at this point, but the teachers don't let students use smartphones because they can cheat easily.
Wow.
So that's why it's one of those like, oh, this single-use device is still useful, in 2020 because the other thing is too useful.
Man, I never thought of that. I feel like that's probably the same thing with like the Scantron.
I do have a vague memory of there being some function where you could store information and people would cheat that way. So it's not foolproof.
I'm not going to admit this. But that was one of the most popular functions of that calculator in that era.
Maria's vague memory of
someone else doing that.
Of unlocking the notes section of a TI-86 calculator or whatever it is. All right. So what's everyone up to this weekend, Brian? Are you house hunting this weekend?
No, I actually bought a house. And we close in a few months, but it's a few blocks away from where I live now up in Miami Shores. So that's hopefully amazing. When we have our 4th of July freedom celebration at the live pod, it can be at my new house.
I'm pretty sure that if we do the official 4th of July celebration for the Miami tech community at Brian's house, you'll have more people at it than live in Miami Shores. Right. I feel like we can't. I don't know how big your backyard is, but first of all, congrats on buying a new house. A lot of change in the Miami Tech Pod co-host world here. We have Will having a third baby, Brian buying a house. Maria, you have any life-changing news here you want to share? Did you buy another dog?
Oh, no. And I don't buy the dogs. They're rescues.
Did you rescue another dog?
No, don't tempt me. I will have some news soon. Stay tuned.
Oh, all right. Very cool. Well, we'll wrap then. We'll make this a short pod so we can get on with our weekend plans. But we have some exciting guests coming up that you'll have to stay tuned and make sure you're subscribed to the pod coming next week and in the following weeks. But this wraps up episode 11 of the Miami Tech Pod. I'm Cesar Fernandez, and please make sure that you rate and subscribe to the show on your favorite podcast app and follow us on Twitter at Miami Tech Pod. I think we crossed 800 Twitter followers this week. So thank you so much for everyone who's followed us and kept up with our corny Twitter jokes and, shared this episode with your friends and family. It really means a lot to the community, to everyone who's building these companies that we're highlighting. And we'll see you next week on episode 12.